Pago, welcome to the Virtual CMO podcast. I'm so glad you could join us today.
Thank you so much, Eric, for having me on the show. I'm excited.
You know, one of the things that I am noticing as a trend as I have guests on this show, especially those that come from technology providers, is we are using the word AI over and over again. AI, big data, all of these amazing tools that are coming available to marketers. The prevalence of them is just fantastic. And I know you work with a company that provides some of this great new technology. And I'd love it before we kick off here, if you could just give the audience a little bit of background on yourself and talk a little bit about outranking.
Sounds good. Yes. So my name is Pankil Shah, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Outranking.io, with about 10 years of experience in marketing, which is funny because I'm an aerospace engineer by profession, but I got into marketing earlier on and starting a tech company when I was just about to graduate from college. And I worked with a few enterprise companies leading growth strategies, especially in content marketing, how we can grow, how we can use content to drive leads and revenue. And whatever we were doing in those companies inspired us to build out this product, which can help us do what we were doing in a repeatable fashion. So that's how Outranking came about in existence. And Outranking is SEO content writing and optimization platform um, that aids writers and SEO managers in creating content that performs well in a repeatable fashion in organic search. And the optimization part allows you to kind of piggyback on the pages which you've created a long time ago but not really performing well. You can use outranking to really get them to rank higher and bring ROI. It's often said that a link on second page of Google is graveyard, and
Yes.
outranking helps you get out of that graveyard and get your content noticed. So a brief intro.
No, that's really interesting to me because I did an interview a few weeks back with a company called Lately.ai that helps use AI to create social media posts, taking a piece of content and then developing a number of social media posts. And, we've clearly heard about a lot of other tools on this podcast as well that use AI to help you in writing. So how does that really work? If you're do you always start with a piece of old content and then refresh it, make it new? Or does this tool actually help you write content from scratch?
It helps you write content from scratch.
Yep.
So in order to understand how does AI generate text, we need to understand what it was trained on, right? So AI was trained on about 2% of web data, so it knows sufficient amount of information to piece things together, but it doesn't have uh, all the context in the world, right? Like 98% is still missing.
Okay.
So the way this works is that you're gonna have to give it a little bit feedback in order to get some to get some output back from AI,
Okay.
and that's just how AIs work, right? So the better you want to write, the better content you want in an output, the better input you're gonna have to provide. So the better research you're gonna have to provide. So there's two ways we've seen products develop in this space. One is that generates this ideation or brainstorming model, which you talked about in social media. Is you give it a few ideas and it'll give you some creative ideas that you can post on social media. So
Yep.
it's essentially a brainstorming platform where you can edit this text quickly, personalize it, and publish it on social media, right?
Okay.
Similarly, for blog post, um, there's two ways you can write content now that AI is coming into existence. One is continuous writing. So you write a little text and say, "Hey, complete the paragraph for me," or "complete the sentence for me," and venture into the new paragraph, and then I'll adjust it as I go and keep writing with AI. Click button and it writes a few sentences. Click button, it writes a few sentences. Now, the problem with that, and the second approach is modular writing. So you're writing based on some context of paragraph. It's not continuous because you're not asking AI to continuously write for you, but you are giving it a precise instructions and saying, hey, just write around that. Those are two different approaches that we have seen, and what we have pioneered in modular approach of writing. And that preliminary comes from the issue that AI can many times lie, right? Because it
Hmm.
only knows 2% of the data.
Okay.
If you're writing it for long form content, it's gonna lie. It's possible. It's probability, right? Like you're writing based on probability. And when you're writing long form content for a company that is trying to drive leads and revenue through this
Yep.
page, that's not a game you want to be playing. Probability, right?
Right, right.
uh,
No.
so modular approach really helps here because now you can feed research and create this modular paragraphs out of it. And that's what outranking does. What outranking really is, it goes and finds concept from ranking pages or from existing information that you feed in, and use those concepts to influence the AI in helping you finish those paragraphs. So now you write more factual stuff. You write about anything that AI does not know, things that have been published today using our platform. So that's how we're transforming that. But essentially, AI has given rise to a big problem of fluffy content on web.
Mm.
People tend to think that because there's AI and it generates text, we'll be able to write an entire blog post or spin it, someone calls it, and publish it and rank tomorrow. Not going to happen today, not going to happen tomorrow, not going to happen ever. Unless you add additional value, unless you write something that your readers will chuck others and read yours in return, your content is not gonna good enough to rank. So like we really strive with our platform to help you create amazing content that not only ranks in Google but has the depth of it, has the kind of information that users need and would digest in order to move on to the next steps.
So if I play back what I thought I just heard you say is with this modular approach, really what you're doing is you're almost taking it paragraph by paragraph or maybe even a couple sentences by sentences, and you're looking at what the AI presents back to you. You're giving it some feedback, maybe giving it some additional data points to look at. It comes back with more suggestions. And so the article starts to unfold piece by piece as you're giving it those suggestions. It's not coming up with a 2-page blog post and then you go back and edit it sort of line by line. It's an interactive process.
Yes, absolutely. A human's in always in place and picking the kind of points that they want to elaborate on and write around it. So it stays on track. It writes what's in your mind because you're picking what's in your mind, and not going off tangent, working with probability. Yes.
And so you're always starting with a keyword or a key phrase, something that it can go do a little bit of research on, understand what's already on ranking pages today, and that's where it starts to build some of its intelligence.
Yes, absolutely, right. So, if you were to rank on Google and you were trying to understand any sort of algorithm that can help you kind of narrow down what you need to do in order to create content that ranks or outranks this 20 top players, you need to understand what they are doing right? So, it all starts with keyword. Then outranking goes and analyzes these pages, understands and collects all the matrices that make up their ranking, and then use that information to not only aid the AI in writing, but also optimizing your existing content so you meet those core vitals and potentially outrank those guys with better content with better depth.
It's interesting because it's almost the reverse approach in some ways of what you would get from many of these SEO plugin type tools that sort of take a look at the content after it's been created and then basically tell you what's wrong with it and what you need to fix in it. This is really building it step by step. How much are you concerned with the typical factors that some of those plugins would normally grade content on? Is the AI really focused on those same kinds of metrics?
Somewhat, and maybe a little more, right? So AI can go a little deeper than some of these tools because it can understand the language and extract semantically related terms and stuff like that. So if you are targeting toddler seats versus rolling stroller for toddlers, it could essentially mean same thing. And if it does, you want to be creating content that ranks for both of these terms. AI can understand, can capture those intents, align them, and outranking certainly can, and present this information to you so you don't exclude these things. While some of these plugins and tools that you have, they're more mechanical, so they can read into the highest frequently used words, but not semantically related words, right? Or there are many other data points that you can analyze if you are using AI instead of a regular mechanism. Yeah.
That's very interesting. And then I assume that once this is all done, then you still have the exercise of going back and adding your graphical elements, whatever other things that you need to do, embedded videos. And how does it handle things like reference points, backlinks, and things like that? Does it do anything? Does it suggest maybe you should add a backlink to this or something else?
Yes. So one, well, it will suggest you over 15 on-page SEO vitals that you need to optimize.
Okay.
And well, backlinking being an external SEO factor, so it's considered not on-page, off-page
Right.
optimization. So it's outside of your content. What we really focus on is on content, so we focus on internal linking, right? uh, if you do proper internal linking, you can elevate rankings of all your pages on the website, and
Mm.
that is part of our suggestion. It can even go and read through your sitemaps and pull out internal links that you should be including, which are relevant to the page you are writing, so you don't have to constantly go and find those four links to include in your content when you don't know who you're writing about, what their website looks like, what kind of content they have, and all those problems just fade away if you use the outranking.
So how do you look at this for marketing professionals? You know, on this podcast, as an example, uh, I get requests all the time from guests who want to be on the show. And I would say the two most popular categories of guests who want to be on the show are somebody in the realm of digital marketing and specifically SEO experts, right? A lot of SEO experts. Weekly, I get requests for that. And so there are a lot of companies out there that are getting pitched various SEO services. And we all know that some of them are terrible, right? Some of them are producing very standard content that really doesn't do much good, or they're trying to rank for keywords that really don't matter. And then there are other ones who are actually very good. But the challenge always is many writers don't understand someone's business. They don't really understand what to write about. And so therefore the quality of the content can always only get to a certain level. How do you think AI solves that problem or at least helps with that problem?
Absolutely. So, in order to understand how AI is going to help you bridge some of these gaps, is your workflow process. So, with AI in mind now, what you should really be focusing on is copy editing. Because the first piece or the first draft can be generated quite easily. If you take that labor out of writing that first copy and put it towards making sure that the copy is optimized for humans and it's copy edited properly, factual information and stuff like that, it's going to float better. So the way we have found success, and most of people who use outranking on our platform has found success, is they divide this process into two. If you're good at both, that's great, because our platform, even if you're not an SEO expert, you can still do SEO stuff with our platform because it's a much guided approach. But let's say if you are a company and you are trying to create this content at scale and make sure that it meets certain amount of quality and depth that you only have, the way to go about is cutting down this process into essentially two or three steps. One would be get a virtual assistant or get in a VA to help you write the first draft. Or someone in your marketing department can literally write a first draft in less than 10 minutes, or 15 minutes using Outranking or other similar products. Then once you have that, you give it to a subject matter experts and say, hey, can you add a couple of points about what we should be writing about, whether it makes sense. And this is not required step, but if it is there, you can add significant amount of depth. Third, go hire a very good copywriter who can catch on this and add value to this first written draft very fast.
Mm.
What we have noticed is that we essentially, it would take approximately an entire day to really create a good piece of blog post. If it really mattered to you for revenue, not just say used to stick it to the wall, but it would take 8 hours. But if you follow this approach, a VA literally does the job in 15 to 20 minutes. The editor does the next piece of the puzzle in about a couple of hours or even less. And the person who needed to add a value because he's only adding a few points here and there probably can go through the entire piece in 15 to 20 minutes. So now you concise the entire process into 3 hours or less, which is less than half the time, and it is again modular, so you have control over what you want to optimize, what you want to don't optimize, and make sure the content that comes out is just rock solid. and not take any shortcuts. AI is making people take shortcuts, and I kid you not going to work very long. Humans are needed for the entire process.
Yes, I've never had a single um, guest on the show who advocates a tool that's got AI technology built in who says that this is replacing humans, right? Humans, it speeds things up, it helps you along, but it doesn't replace humans for sure. And one of the things that, because I use VAs and I have people that help me with writing, and I think one of the biggest challenges has always been tone of voice. Not only the brand's voice, but my own voice. Certainly, there are things where your English is a little bit different than my English, and somebody else's English is a little bit different than my English. And so, when you start to pull together a virtual team who are trying to help you and represent the brand with a single voice, even little things like our backgrounds, where we come from, we're going to write things differently, right? So,
Right.
how does the tool help with that? How do you set sort of a tone, a voice for the AI to model after?
So the way you set a tone is not go after those generic tones, right? Like you call it tone. I would say if you want to be more specific and write with personality,
Yep.
uh, right? Like you need tone of voice. Because tone can be persuasive, aggressive, friendly, and very generic stuff, right? But that's not me, right? Like I'm
Yes.
probably funny, uh, but frustrated that I have a kid who stays up overnight. So I can use that as tone of voice and say, frustrated dad of a toddler who's also very friendly.
Oh, that's
And now,
that's how you'd put it into the tool, something like that.
exactly.
Oh, interesting.
And it starts working towards that. So I'd say you can personalize it as much as you want. Again, you're not going to get 100% out of it. But if you can get 70, 75%, hey, that's a win for me because it just reduced 2/3 of my time.
I think that's totally what it's about, right? It's about trying to be the most productive that you can be and ultimately get the best quality content that you can out of it. I think that's a huge win if it can happen. And that's interesting to me that you can help set the tone over time. So is it learning? You set that tone as you start to write an article, but then the next time you go in, has it learned from what I've put in from previous articles, from the previous work efforts?
So it's not going to learn on fly,
Yeah.
but the settings that you use, you could use over and over again to sort of generate text which is in similar tone of voice
Mm.
over and over again. It's not going to learn from the existing style because understand like your tone of voice can change based on paragraph that you're shifting from, the context that you're trying to get at. Some might be more serious talk, some might be more lighter talk, right? Even though you have a set of tone of voice, those are significantly different. So if you're writing really about thought leadership, there's going to be heavy editing for tone of voice that you're going to need, and probably a copywriter that does a better job at that. But it can sort of get you to that 70% by having that tone of voice in it. So you have to make smaller adjustments than a lot more.
Okay. I'm curious too a little bit on the business side. So in looking at your website and how you've got the product set up, I know you've got different pricing plans and whatnot, but you do it sort of by character, right? So there's a number of documents and a number of characters that you charge for based on the plan. Why did you settle on that model as opposed to sort of a one price all you can get?
So that's a it really depends on your cost structure and how
Sure.
your customers use the product, right? So if you talk about the cost aspect of it, if you're using AI, any sort of AI, it's charging you, or you're getting, the cost is based on the amount of characters processed, not output. It's processed. That means input, output, plus the training data that you give it. So it's quite complicated than that. So if you were consuming with AI, you can literally do 200 blog posts a month, rock
Mhm.
solid if you wanted to. If this was your profession and you wanted to make tons of money every month, you could do that. And if you could do that, then that would be an unfair advantage, but a lot more cost to the company, right? So,
Sure.
and the second aspect to look at is that writers also charge based on the words that they write, right?
Yep.
So essentially comes down to characters. And some blog posts are 5,000 words, some blog posts are literally 500 words. You don't want to charge them same amount of money for different sorts of outputs that they have. So what makes more sense is economies of scale. If you are trying to scale a business, you want to pay for things that you're consuming, not that's going to lie around and probably not use and then just vanishing, right? But that's what happens with most models. Is someone would purchase the product. Let's say you're a freelancer, you purchased a product this month, you got 10 documents. So you updated the plan to $99 a month, and the next month you only got two. So now you feel cheated that, hey, I lost all the credits and I had to pay additional money. But with our platform, that just diminishes, right? Because it's pay as you go, and it's more scalable for
Hmm.
writers and for anyone who's using our platform.
It's always fascinating to me because I've seen this with a lot of technology is that when it first comes out, it tends to be more a pay as you go model. I mean, I think back to, some of the early cell phone plans, right? And everything charged by text message, charged by the minute and everything. And now everybody just wants unlimited. They don't want to think about those kinds of things. But that generally comes when the technology gets to a price point where the providers can offer it at a reasonable price because, like you said, everybody does use it a little bit differently.
Yes, absolutely. And the way we use AI is significantly different because we use AI to do read the content that's already out there, research for you, collect those concepts from it, and then allow you to write content around it. So we have a primary step which processes this data already using AI. And if you're writing tons and tons of content, that cost can really pile up. Although your quality would be significantly higher with our platform than many who don't research at all. But so it's give or take, right? And if our technology and the way people create content on our platform is significantly different, then there's no point for us to stick to that regular model. So we adopted more sort of an AWS kind of a model, right, where you pay for the servers as much as you use it. If you don't use it, then you can wind it down a little bit.
Hmm. So, who's your target customer? This podcast, we tend to gear it towards small and mid-sized businesses, people who maybe have small marketing staffs, or maybe do some outsourced work where they bring in agencies or others. Is your ideal customer an agency customer, somebody who's writing on behalf of multiple customers, or is it for those small and mid-sized businesses who maybe don't have dedicated writers on staff but are really looking to create some good, solid SEO quality content?
So we have both personas working on our platform. I'd add solopreneurs to it as well, people who just write for themselves and have blogs that generate essentially hundreds of thousands of dollars in revenue for them, solopreneurs. Um, we have writers who write for multiple companies. They're writing for small and medium-sized companies again, so it all falls back to small and medium-sized companies who want to accelerate their organic presence. They, with a very limited amount of resources, can use our platform to not only create content but to optimize it as well. And that's one of the trends that we have seen. More agencies use our platform to write content, create content, while more SMEs who they are creating content for also use our product to optimize their existing content, which is where the gold mine is. You've been potentially probably writing for last 4 or 5 years. So you have 100, 200, 300 blog posts laying around on your website, and out of which 90% of them are not performing, right? So there goes your money. Um, what Outranking can help you do is put a spin on it and get at least 10% more ranking. Imagine the kind of revenue and exposure it can bring for your brand. So many small and medium-sized companies are also using products, are outranking, and we have seen an influx of also enterprises starting to adopt this model and go and find pages to optimize their on their existing website. And this is one of the biggest challenges because you have so many pages in enterprise, like 10,000 pages that you have written out. Now your job is not only to go optimize them, but to first find out which pages you want to go and optimize.
That's right.
So outranking can help you with that as well. Quickly identify pages that you can improve to get highest amount of content ROI, and then just pursue those dedicatedly till you nail it to the wall.
Well, I'm so glad you mentioned that because I think everybody tends to get into this mindset of we need something new, rather than focusing on what they already have. Certainly we've talked a lot on this show about Core Web Vitals and the way that has really forced a lot of businesses to relook at their websites and how those websites are performing. And, do they need a new website? Do they need to update those pages? Do they need to change their design and their layout? So there's a lot that Google is constantly asking us to do as marketers, right, to stay fresh. But you also have all that content, and you may have great content that did rank well once and now has slowly fallen down the rankings as people have written better content or fresher content. And you might have something that you could push back up the rankings fairly easily if you just devoted some attention to it.
Absolutely. And what we've also noticed is that many people who wrote like 4 years ago probably didn't keep SEO in mind.
Yeah.
So their content is probably great. It's just lacking a few vitals. So we need to find out those quick changes that you can make in 5 to 10 minutes to get those pages ranking. So that's what outranking really helps you do, is find those pages with 5-10 minute of value add and see it ranking up a little higher. And if it does, then you can put more energy and time into improving it further.
Okay, so now I'm going to put you on the spot as an almost rocket scientist. You know, you've got foresight here. You're looking into what technology is providing us today. 5 years from now, what do you think AI is going to be capable of doing that it's not quite ready to do today?
Um, wow. Okay. AI will probably do a lot of things, but with guidance, I believe. So it will write much better content than it already is. It'll probably know a lot more information than it already knows because it's constantly learning. And capabilities in terms of processing will also increase. So you'll get faster information, faster brainstorming, more ideas, better ideas. But one aspect that I don't see it replacing anytime in near future is humans in the picture. I think AI is like a machine which is as good as the human using it, and that's not going to change for a very long time, at least from my perspective. But
Mm.
uh, a shift that we will see in terms of marketing is the heavy focus on copy editing than brainstorming or ideation or just the legwork behind getting to that point in publishing. So heavily leaning towards copy editing, and copywriters are going to be majorly in demand, in my opinion.
Do you think some of this technology is going to migrate more towards our individual computers and letting those do the heavy lifting versus it all being a server level kind of activity? Or do you think for the foreseeable future, this is going to be a cloud-based activity?
It has to be a cloud-based activity, and
Mm.
nothing is stopping you from doing this on your computer. Even right now, you can create your own APIs and spin things together on your PC. But it's cheaper, it's affordable to be on the cloud and being accessed by millions of people. If you were to build technology that lives on everyone's computer, there's updates and there's different kinds of issues that you'd run into that are computer level, and it's not very scalable. So
Yeah.
I would say it's going to be cloud based, just like how documents are. You want to create and update and share documents from a plane now, right?
Right.
And that's how people use outranking too, is write content no matter where they are. And for that to happen, I think technology needs to be accessible. So cloud is where we are going to see well, people are shifting towards it, and it's going to be more of just that, right? Like we thought about bare metal servers and stuff like that. Like Oracle invested so much money in financial institutions using bare metal servers, right? Now they tend to start looking into venues of going in cloud to save money, save
Sure.
infrastructure costs and stuff like that. So that's exactly, I think more of that will happen, not less of that.
It's going to be interesting. I mean, technology is advancing so quickly. And I think as a marketer, it's an exciting time because we just have so many tools at our disposal that can make our jobs easier and the quality of our products better. So this has been a fascinating discussion. Tell the audience a little bit more about where they can find you online and where they can find more about outranking.
So you guys can find me on LinkedIn. It's linkedin.com/in/punkilsha9. Or you can find me all over outranking.io. So feel free to register on outranking.io. We have a free trial that you can use to kind of understand and learn technology, learn the AI technology and how you should be writing content 2022. And see if you find value, attend some of our webinars where we teach you how to really write content using AI and optimize it for better ranking. Um, and you can sign up for a free trial on outranking.io.
That's great. I will make sure that we have all of that linked up in the show notes so that people can find you, they can find Outranking, and check out the tool for themselves, because I love that you give people a free trial so that they can play around with it, see what it can do. But to me, this really seems like something that many businesses, like you said, all the way from a solopreneur to small, mid-sized businesses up to an enterprise, could take advantage of to make their content better and to improve the efficiency of actually writing.
Absolutely.
Pankil, thank you so much for being on the show. I've really enjoyed our discussion today.
Thank you so much, Eric, for having me on the show. This was a fun conversation.
Thank you again.
Thank you.